Good. So, oh, I'm just getting a message. Pardon me. One sec.
Yeah, no worries.
So, so you're a pocket player? Was that it? Pocket scout?
Correct. Pocket soldier.
Pocket soldier, right? And what did you want to like? What do you think you want to get better at?
I think my weakest point is chaos and like mid fights.
Do you just get
Like
overwhelmed?
general and stalemates, obviously it's really easy. I'm just chill, but in chaos I absolutely suck.
You kind of get overwhelmed with what's going on and stuff. Do you find?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, the thing about it's very easy to get overwhelmed and stuff when you're not too sure about what's going on, which is why I think it's like the key thing, especially on mids, is to try and like develop an idea of like what you should be doing. Yeah. Like the kind of the fundamentals of mid. So, what I reckon we could do if you want to start off with it is we could like jump onto a server and like on a map and I can talk you through things, or we could watch one of your demos. Or what do you think would you'd be comfortable with?
Yeah, the demo that I sent I think will be chill because it's processed and I think it's probably my worst mid out of all the maps, excluding like the ones that are not processed very often. It's probably my worst mid out of all.
Download your shit.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah, right, gotcha.
let me chuck this in. What do I call you, by the way?
Just lucky.
Lucky.
The it's just dumb shit, don't worry about it.
You're
Just
right.
say lucky, it's fine.
So I'm gonna do a Discord stream, yeah, of like my game.
Yeah, yeah.
Fuck, I crashed. Fantastic.
Yep.
I really love when TF2 crashes.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Actually, before we watch your demo, I think it might be better if I jump on like a local server. Or in fact, we'll get you involved. I'll like book a server and you can jump on with me, okay?
Yeah, sure. No worries.
Let me just figure out how to fucking get the server. So that's the string, yeah.
Yeah, cheers.
You know how to do all that shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Might need to rejoin the server because I crashed it.
Okay.
Oh, what the fuck happened? Did it restart again?
I'm in. I'm on you.
Okay. Okay. You can jump in if you want. You can come my team if you like.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put on hurt me.
Sure.
Well, so you're a pocket, you know the roller, I imagine, it's pretty straightforward, you kind of hurt yourself and then you pick X to middle.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think the thing about Soldier is kind of like, the first thing you want to do is kind of understand what you're good at and what you're bad at. Like, Soldier, he's got fuck all ammo, his rockets are not particularly reliable, and he's super fucking slow, yeah? And now with like, I'm sure you know about the scout meta, like scouts are very important, and they're like probably the most powerful class. So you often find that like, Soldier, your job not necessarily is not really to like, do a whole lot of damage and jump into the enemy and get raped. It's kind of more about, you want to create space for your team. And you do that most of the time by like rocket jumping and positioning. So I'm sure you know like very base Soldier things, so you should know fundamental Soldier things like you want to abuse high ground advantages. And you want to be in positions where you're not going to eat a lot of collateral spam from the enemy. Like the worst thing you can do as a Soldier is kind of like sit around your combo and they just get, not only is it really easy for your team to get raped by focus fire and spam, but you're also not really breaking up the enemy's vision. Like what you want to be striving to do on mids is to get in positions such as here, or like on high ground and stuff, or be doing really big jumps. So like your teammates aren't gonna have to suffer from your poor position. And then what we do from there is like we try and create space as Soldiers for our teammates, and we do that by like doing things like jumping around and kind of like pulling enemies' attention away from our team, and kind of like opening up the map, so to speak, and not really like compromising our teammates. Because I think like the thing that bad Soldiers do, or at least beginner Soldiers, is they tend to cluster a little bit too much around their team, and they try and fight as a unit. Or they do things like they simply just jump into the enemy and they feed, which is not really what we want to do. Because our class is not particularly good at like straight up man fighting most like classes these days, especially on mids, especially versus scouts. So so a lot of the time you're going to be like communicating with your team and doing calls that you're going to do like a big jump and stuff. And I think you gotta like understand like what the purpose of that is. It's not necessarily for you to just jump in and kill people. It's more about like doing a big jump to like really alleviate pressure off your team. Because you can kind of think about like what are you trying to do? Like if I were the enemy and you're doing a big jump like that, you're like directing a lot of attention onto yourself, or at least occupying the enemy for a period of time, and that's how you kind of create space a lot of the time as Soldier, just via presence, not necessarily you like even shooting people. You kind of want to be flying around and breaking up the enemy vision and kind of occupying their attention and stuff. And, and once you like get a grasp for doing this sort of thing as Soldier, like kind of making space just by jumping around and pulling attention and stuff, you immediately like go up a level, I think.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of the time it's like, you kind of want to be occupying players, especially like key enemies, like scouts. So if you're doing these sort of things like jumping around and flying through the air, especially like really big jumps, because you want to go the higher and faster you go, the better, because it's much harder for you to get hit. It's much harder for them to like kill you, and they also waste more time. So if you're a Soldier and you're like doing these sorts of jumps, you're occupying the enemy and landing in really good spots and stuff, and you're like wasting multiple classes time and making them with you can imagine how awesome that is for your team, because it's gonna like, you're trading yourself essentially like your own time for like a lot of the enemies, and that's what you kind of want to strive to do as a Soldier, and that will make space for your team to come in and win. What would you say you typically do on like most mids? Like how does it go for you?
Well, I start the mid and I pretty much chill for like the first 2 or 3 seconds,
spam some rockets,
seeing what they're doing. Spam rockets mainly at their demo, and then from there on, if my roamer obviously hasn't pre-planned a double bomb with me, and then typically I either try and just take height, help my scouts get the roof, or I do bomb, but I think I bomb into their combo a little bit way too much, and I don't know like when to just bomb and distract and get a good post position, or when to actually jump in.
Yeah, so that's like the typical thing for, I think, beginner Soldiers, is that they think that jumping into the enemy is like a kind of a death sentence. They kind of fully commit to the frag, or like getting basically landing in the team, and more often than not I imagine that results in you kind of like dying pretty fucking quickly, right?
Yeah, most of the times. Unless we're facing, like, obviously some less experienced teams that just somehow nuke them all, but other than that, most of the time, yeah, I'm not really landing in a good position to end the fight, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's you gotta like you want to play into like Soldier's strengths and you like avoid his weaknesses. So, like we talked at the start. Like he's very vulnerable in the sense he's super slow when he's on foot. His rockets are not particularly reliable at a long range, and also he can self damage really easily, and he has fuck all rockets. So we want to like alleviate these things, and like oftentimes, unless you're completely stomping a fight or you're desperate, it's not often worth just like jumping straight into the enemy. For like for obvious reasons, because you just get ham fucked and it's often hard to shoot them. So that's why it's like as you try and play Soldier better, it's more about like going back to what we talked about alleviating pressure, trying to like apply pressure to the enemy, kind of force them back, maybe do damage, that sort of thing, while not feeding. And also just being able to like reload so you can do more stuff. You'll find that really good soldiers, they kind of like, they have a full clip, they'll get into a position, they might do a crazy jump, they might do some damage, and then they'll refresh, they'll go back to reloading a lot of the time.
Yeah, right.
Like I bet like, well, most soldiers when they're beginning, it's like they just spend 4 rockets and then they're dead, and they're usually like jumping into the enemy. And there's a place for that, you know, like when it's called for, but like most of the time you're gonna find that team fights especially, it's kind of about who wins over time, and like and the more you accumulate the like advantages on a mid fight, such as like player numbers or position or HP, that sort of thing, it's going to result in you being more likely for your team to win the fight, essentially. So for Process in particular, the way if we're doing Pocket, well, the rollout's not fucking complicated for Pocket, right? You just look at it yourself, you pickaxe for like here, and of course you want to be as far away from your medic as possible, so your beam, the bow is the most effective, and then you're coming into mid with your crit buff. Most of the time the Pocket is like, you're gonna spam some cheeky rockets across the void. Like, this is a critical thing for any entry on solo mid, I think, is like you want to be spamming rockets in a way that, this is like an amazing spot to spam, because you can imagine it's very hidden from the enemy sightlines. You want to like, definitely try and shoot rockets around corners and stuff like that, because they're way harder to dodge, So that's a pretty obvious opening. And then it's kind of about like, your teammates are probably going to call where they are, like what side they are most of the time. And then you can kind of make your decisions about how you want to approach the enemy, or how you want to like make space for your team. So oftentimes it's not really worth like jumping into the face of enemies. Like up here is often bad, you can imagine, because it's so easy to get fucking shit on by like demos and scouts and stuff. So you're probably going to find yourself more on like the outskirts of fights, spamming them from a safer distance, or at least like being away from your team so you don't eat collateral. I think the thing that bad soldiers typically do, which like really is detrimental not only to them and their team, is like they love to sit up like here where their scout should be, for instance. And the major problem is that you can imagine the enemy demo can just have a free reign and fucking owning you. But you can imagine like if you're up here instead, or maybe like doing one of these sorts of jumps, you just go fucking flying through the air and like really pulling enemy attention. That's so much better. Not only for yourself, because it's gonna, you know, you're not gonna get blasted just by standing up on a spot, but it's gonna make a lot of space for your team. And you can imagine like if you come down here and you're the enemy, and they're like, you're flying through the air like that, it's so much harder for them to keep track of you, and it just makes a lot of space for your team. So I think you should definitely be practicing like space making jumps as Soldier, and that's kind of like recognizing the key points to jump off, like so stuff like here, that billboard, you know, or like you can do this sort of jump off this thing, you can do it properly. Jump off this thing, you can like jump off this wall over here, that one, you can be over here and do these sorts of jumps. You immediately become a better soldier if, like, at the start of fights, you recognize, like, where you're jumping from, like, good positions, and where you try and land. Like, that's the key thing to practice. Like, start off, like, recognizing the best spots to be, which is usually, like, some sort of high ground area to the side where you can see stuff, but you're not, like, clustered by your team. Try and take those positions first and foremost, and then you can do, like, your big space-making jumps where you try and go as high and fast as you can to try and occupy the enemy. you can like these sorts of jumps are really good because the enemy doesn't necessarily know if you're going to commit onto them or not, so they oftentimes will get really defensive and back off against you. And if you don't want to commit, you can just like airstrike away and go land in a better position. And you don't even necessarily have to do a lick of damage, but you're probably going to be a better soldier because you're just making space for your team and occupying the enemy. And then like the key part is like when you're finishing your jump, unless you're really committing for it, you don't really want to fucking land inside the enemy team. You're often going to try and think about where you're going to land before you even do your jump. You might land in like a better position, like maybe over here or something. Imagine you landed here. It's a fairly dangerous position, right? Like above the enemy, but you're trading like yourself, and you're probably getting like the entire enemy team kind of like being occupied by you, potentially, at least. That's how you got to think of soldier or mid. Like, what are you trading yourself, and like what are you getting out of it in return? If I were a soldier and I kind of like landed in a spot like here or here, and I kind of occupied multiple class attention, like especially scouts, I would consider that like winning a good fight, because you're trading, you're arguably like playing one of the lesser important classes. So if you're getting a really good trade like that in terms of occupying enemy resources, like their attention and their focus fire and their position and stuff, that probably means you're winning as a soldier, and probably winning a fight for your team. So that's like the key takeaway for soldier on mid. Is kind of like recognize how you want to start off your jumps, do these massive jumps, and you want to go as high and as fast as you possibly can, because you know it makes you less vulnerable, but also a bigger threat to the enemy, because you could go anywhere you wanted. And then you try and land in a good position where you can kind of like apply pressure to the enemy team, but not get raped by them, essentially. And that's usually just a matter of high ground plus like some kind of location to the side where you're not going to get fucking owned by because you're standing in the middle of your team. I know it sounds like fairly obvious in retrospect, but like I think like unfortunately players like yourself are taught these bad habits at the beginning, which kind of compromise them. Like I think a lot of soldiers like you have been kind of taught that your job is just to sack into the enemy team and feed, essentially. Whereas you'll find that you have a lot more fun, and it's a bit more sophisticated, like understanding that your job is not just like fucking bomb in like a terrorist and blow yourself up and get owned instantaneously. It's more about like trying to alleviate pressure off your team by utilizing what your class is good at, which is, you know, being very, very mobile through the air and like landing in good spots and maximizing your spam damage, and kind of minimizing what your class is shit at, which is, you know, being grounded, being really slow, having low ammo, and being kind of like vulnerable in that sense.
I guess another problem that I have is just like I'm always trying to do other people's jobs as well when I feel like they're struggling, which is just not good. Like if my scouts are having trouble getting roof, I might just like if my scouts are having trouble getting roof, my previous mids, I just sit up there as well, and yeah, it just doesn't help because I just take collateral spam all the time.
Exactly. And you obviously want to be avoiding collateral spam for obvious reasons, right? Like not just because you end up taking more damage, because you're sitting in the same spot as your teammates, but it's also just it's bad for like many reasons, because it's also going to like minimize your team's vision in a sense. Like you guys are both in the same position, so that's like a lack of information. You'd have more information if you were over here, for instance. And then when you think about it conversely, like think of it from the enemy's perspective. If they're down here, and if you just stand there for a second. Imagine you're an enemy demo. If you were down there, like what's like more of a threat and kind of more occupying? If I were up there shooting at you, or if like we had fucking the enemy scouts and soldiers up there shooting at you. It makes it way easier for you. It makes it so much easier for you as a demo, the enemy demo. You can imagine, because you've got so much less to focus on. There are far less threats and stuff. But imagine like instead of you in a scout being up there, up here. You as a soldier like flying through the air and going over a demo, and going over you as a demo. Like it's just so much more chaotic and kind of occupying the enemy and that sort of thing, and kind of like getting more vision. It compromises their vision. It compromises like their focus fire. It's really like chaotic for them. It just in general, it's just you're getting a lot more out of your class, and you're not really like hurting your team either.
Yeah. Another thing is that, let's say doing those space making bombs, is there ever any time where you'd actually want to go behind them or anything like that? Maybe still like behind their choke or anything? Are you just baiting your team at that point?
It's a bit of a fine line, right? Because if you're like really fucking far behind the enemy team, it can get to the point where they can simply just ignore you, yeah? And thus you're not fulfilling like any role, you're not doing anything productive. But there's also a point where like you're too close to them and you feed. This is why I think of Soldier, especially like when you're jumping behind and occupying the enemy. And I should reiterate, it doesn't really necessarily have to be behind them. It can be like anywhere on the map. But the idea is that you kind of want to be a presence, like a threat, to the point where you can occupy enemy attention without like necessarily just getting raped instantaneously. Like it doesn't again, it doesn't have to be like behind them like a lot of roamers think, although they can often be good. It can be like anywhere that's a good position where you can still apply pressure to the enemy, like high grounds to the side, going behind, flying through the fucking air and twirling around them, landing over here. These are all like really like good things to apply pressure and draw attention from the enemy without like eating shit rapidly. But in regards to your specific point, naturally you don't want to be like so far behind that the enemy can just kind of ignore you. And you don't want to be too close that you just get raped. You want to be in a position where you can apply a lot of pressure, or at least like draw a lot of attention without being irrelevant and not feeding.
Yeah, gotcha. I guess as well, of teammate damage, do you want to always be going off that? Like, if they do 82 a demo or something like that, do you want to do that, or do you like leave that for your roamer, or like all situational sort of thing?
Unfortunately, it's hard to give you like a concrete answer, right? Like it's fairly game dependent. You will develop like an intuition for these sorts of things over time, but this is why I try not to like talk about specific like calls and stuff and what you should do. I think it's way more important for newbie players to like develop these like fundamental kind of base rock kind of concepts of what their classes are good at and bad at, and how that can play in the team aspect, rather than telling you what you should do all the time. But if a player on the enemy team were raped and your team called it, that could perfectly be like a viable reason for you to jump in and try and collapse on an enemy demo, for instance. But without like seeing the game and being there and not seeing, it's really hard to give you a concrete answer. Which is why I typically tend to avoid it, because TF2 is a game of variables and lots of little things like influencing how you should play. Which is why I don't want to give you like a concrete answer in these sort of vacuum situations. It's much more, I think it's much more useful and much more understandable if I try and help you appreciate like what your class is more suited for, and like kind of gaining a philosophy for how you should kind of like go into a fight, and what your goal should be and how you can operate and all that sort of thing.
100%.
Rather than specifics.
Yeah, gotcha.
Anything else?
That's what I can think of right now, no.
Well, we can talk about like some of the roles of Pocket outside of mid if you want.
Yeah, no, 100%, that'd be helpful.
Typically, I think like, I don't know if you've observed, but Pocket Soldier is not really... he's not really like part of Ubers a whole lot. It's mainly a demo scout thing. What I find that Pocket Soldier is more about, he's kind of like a space making sort of protectionary sort of class for his team. Like he kind of like protects the demo medic scout sort of thing, and he makes space for them, and he kind of like initiates opening plays for his team. For instance, like if your team wanted to push this choke, for instance, into second, pretend we're on red team, I suppose, it's pretty much, it's very often times that you're going to be the one leading through, for instance, because you're the healthiest class with a buff, and you can do like, you can get through the most easily, so you can jump like this and come through, and that's really good for like clearing an area, like scouting for snickies and snipers and bombers and stuff. Like that's a massive part of playing Soldier, is like you jump through to kind of like check for threats and stuff, and check for anything that's risking your team. Because like a scout and demo medic are not nearly as suited to doing that sort of thing as you. So that's something that's something you can do to like increase your win rate a tremendous amount. Is like kind of like open up these sort of transitional plays for your team as a soldier.
Yep.
And that you know, it sounds convoluted and complicated, but really it's just a matter of like, jumping through, checking for threats, giving the all clear, and then your team can come through. That's a major thing that soldiers can do to be a lot more effective outside of like mids. They kind of just like scout through, scout and pushes and make space.
Yeah, gotcha.
And that applies to like a lot of areas, right? Not just like through this choke, but it can be pretty much any area you're pushing. You oftentimes going to find that you, especially with an Ubrad that you want to retain, you're going to be trying to make space for your teammate.
Yeah.
What else? Soldiers, not a pocket soldier's not particularly interesting. There's not a whole lot else to cover. I don't think.
Yeah,
it's stuff like sacking. Do you do much sacking as a pocket soldier?
I do quite a bit myself. Yeah. I think that's one thing I'm quite proactive in actually. Is
that's good.
Realizing when my roamer can't. Or I find because soldier opening is a soldier opening. It's not necessarily like a roamer opening.
That's true.
A soldier season opening. You know, my theory is go for it.
Yep. You're playing the same class. Yeah.
I think that's one thing. Yeah. So. You know, it's like if my roamer can do it, I can do it, and if the roamer hasn't spotted onto it and I have, I may as well just go for it before it closes, sort of thing. It's my kind of philosophy with that.
Well, in modern TF2, it's pretty often that you have both soldiers sacking. Like both soldiers often sack these days because it's like you probably do singular sacks on your team or like in pugs and stuff. Just like one player going it.
For when I did play, which I haven't played for like 4 seasons now, but it was always single sacks. So I think everyone was just like, oh, if we don't get a good sack, we're 2 down, we have to give it up, sort of thing. I think everyone was just a bit too scared to do double sacks.
Nah. I'll tell you why. Like, I'll explain why double sacking is kind of like better these days. The issue of like single sacking soldiers is that it's very low risk a lot of the time. Like, it's very easy for the enemy to focus you down. And it's very hard for you to get in and apply pressure, especially since scouts just keep getting better, right? It's like you're always going to be jumping into those fuckers and getting decimated. And also, I think like a really understated bad thing about doing singular sacks is like it's very hard for the enemy team to like try and do a counter sack or a counter play off getting one pick, which I know sounds like a kind of weird, but like in a sense that when you do a double sack, there's a big advantage in kind of forcing the enemy's hand to kind of come back and try and do something like counter sack or trade into you, which you can play off. Like you can essentially play off a player disadvantage by forcing the enemy's hand, which is a big part of like double sacking, especially on like this map and Snake Water and shit. But back to the original idea of like doing double soldier sacks. It's just so much more effective because you've got 2 players flying through the air towards the enemy medic, and it's just way harder for them to shut down 2 soldiers than it is a singular one. And and you've also got the benefit of like the first soldier can often like juggle the enemy medic or like corral him into a spot where it's hard for him to dodge and stuff, and then the second soldier can often fly in and like finish the job of a force or a drop and stuff.
Yeah, gotcha.
I'd definitely recommend that your team or whatever actually do more double sacks, because it's pretty much meta in most parts of the game. So like while that's going on, typically like your demo has like a major trap up. Yeah? And then your scouts and medic are either like playing close, ready to like trade into them, or they're playing really far back, waiting for you guys to spawn. Obviously that's kind of map dependent, but I think the days of like singular sacking, unless you want to be really safe, is kind of like outdated and stuff. It's too low risk reward is the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I guess
go.
Is it a strat to like, I don't know, we did it a few times on some teams, is that you kind of send the first soldier to fake bomb, like they'll jump and they'll just go sewer, and then the other one will go in. Is that like still like kind of low risk, or is that
that's pretty good. Like I dig that sort of thing because it's not like it can kind of mislead the enemy and not broadcast your intentions too much. Like they can oftentimes overcommit or like get too distracted by you. and you're the first soldier,
Yeah.
and then the second soldier can do his jump, and then while they've switched their attention back to him, then you can do a follow-up jump with like the initial soldier. That sort of shit's really
Yeah.
cool.
Okay.
The key things being like you obviously don't want to be super predictable with like your sacks and stuff. You want to kind of vary them in terms of who goes first, how you go in, what speeds, like all that sort of thing. So you mixing up is really good in that way. And of course the golden rule being when you fly through, you want to be trying to go as high and as fast as you can a lot of the time, because that's gonna like really fucking minimize the chance of you just getting blasted by scatterguns or rockets or stickies.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Not that I can think off the top of my head. I think a lot of my problems is just like probably experience, to be honest. Like just chaos fights. I'm just always so like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, sort of thing. Which is like
we can
pretty evident, I think, in the demo.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue that kind of newer players have. Is they're just not really taught about like their responsibilities or what they should be trying to aim to do. Like I think you've just kind of been brought into these games and you've been told, oh, you just sack and jump the enemy and shit. As a general, like the combo, it doesn't feel very like sophisticated, I suppose, or like it's hard to understand. Which is why it's like learning like classes is it's much more about like trying to like appreciate their strengths and weaknesses and how that can influence like how you actually do things. Like you obviously want to like do what your class is good at and try and minimize what he's bad at, right?
Yeah.
Which is why like good soldiering, it's more about kind of like applying pressure and making space and trying not to feed like straight away and just getting territory and vision and occupying the enemy team. So I think if you were to just go and start like playing more games and really focus on like how you're going to start your jumps and where you're going to finish them, you'd notice an immediate improvement in like how often you're going to win mids for your team.
Right.
And you know it's a fairly like hard thing to learn. A big part of it is that intuition and experience, but that only comes with time and practice. But it's important to build off that base, level of fundamentals beforehand, I think, which we're trying to establish.
Yeah, 100%.
It's 1 sec, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
How much? Well, we could look over that your demo if you like, for a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Lucky, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is I'll play the demo, and then I'll stream it via Discord.
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
You tell me if you see this shit.
Yep, it's all good.
Oh, I need to restart it, cool. Where are you? You are the blue soldier. Is this you?
Yep, that'll be me.
1.
One thing I'd say is you probably want to go yourself a little bit more so you can travel faster, because you're kind of slow here. You want to go as far as you can. You can immediately like see the problem we're talking about beforehand, yeah? Like I'm pretty sure you and your scout, you can see my cursor, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're obviously like not your fault at all, but the soldier has died straight away. But the main issue on this mid is like with a player disadvantage, you're playing the exact same spot as your scout. So we talked about that extensively.
Yeah.
So it should result in you guys kind of getting blasted here, which I think if we really you can see how it like really limits the amount of territory your team has when you're all like clustered like that. It makes it really so, well, somehow your fucking team is almost winning a fight. Not sure they should be able to. Oh, that's low. That's a big shadow. And a friend of mine. So we'll go back to you. There you are. But yeah, I think that mid fight was kind of already lost what it should have been. But
yeah.
We almost died of pipes. That's alright. It's more when we get to a mid or a fight where we. Oh my gosh. I don't think there was necessarily your fault. Your mid-up was pretty out of position.
Yeah.
But these games are chaos. I'm gonna have to really like.
Yeah, they are.
Alert. Our
Yeah,
control point
we'll
is
wait for
being
like
captured.
a more normal fight, and then the enemy minute drops. Oh, yeah, that's just
Yeah.
he just drops.
Yeah.
That's
We have lost the control point.
Agreed on that.
Alert. The final control point is being contested.
I don't even know how I died though. No,
The control point is being captured.
I'd do like another jump there. I'd reload and go even further.
Okay.
Because I'll illustrate like the problem with it. Is that you're just really slow. Like you should be like at this wall down here already.
Yeah, okay.
And the benefit of that is that you can fucking get a full HP bow, and also you're not going to be waddling all the way in, so you'd be faster.
Yeah, okay.
So what I recommend you do is you do the hops you did at the start. That's really good. And then you like do another big jump off that pillar near the beginning, yeah, and land somewhere in the two. And then what I like to do is like reload a little bit. I come to here like this high ground, and then I fall off, start reloading a bit, and I try and grab any ammo kit I can on the rollout. And that sounds like a minor thing, but you'll find that it makes a massive difference on a lot of soldier mids, because you'd be amazed how often you run out of ammo on soldier mids.
Yeah.
Like rockets are really precious, which is why like I try and pick up as many as I can on the rollout, and that will make a big difference. So your goal is to go as fast as you possibly can, so you can actually spend some time reloading, so you can collect ammo, so you can still be here in time to get a good bow, and so you're as fast as possible, and you get the maximum amount of healing, and you get like the maximum amount of ammo.
Yeah, okay.
Trivial. I know it sounds like trivial shit, yeah, but like
Yeah,
it really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Alert. The control point is being captured.
Oh, great shot. So, okay, and then your team is feeding to Aussie, so that's good. What I did like about what you did is like you were pretty good about engaging a fight, and then when you weren't able to do stuff, you kind of backed off and reloaded. So you're able to take like three or four fights there as a soldier, which was really nice. But I think like my main issue is just like what we talked about before, is you're kind of landing in the more scout centric positions.
Yeah.
And thus you're kind of all the bad things we talked about before, like it kind of like makes it easier for your team to get spammed. You have less vision. It makes it way easier on the enemy team to shoot you and keep track of what's going on. I would like to see you do like more big boy jumps as a soldier, like flying off walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's you don't even need to necessarily shoot enemies as a soldier to create a tremendous amount of space for your team. You can just be flying over the enemies and kind of threatening them with your presence to kind of make space and stuff, which is a huge part of like high level soldier play, I think.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I think you're kind of playing a bit too much like a scout, if you know what I mean. You're occupying the positions your scout should kind of be.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, just wait on you to spawn. Okay, Aussies.
Alert. The control point is being contested.
What bracket was this? Sorry, was this main?
I think this is inter. Oh, no, this is main before high was a thing. So this is season 26, I think.
Oh, this is quite old.
Yeah, okay. That was the last time I actually played the team.
Yep, you get a bow here. Yeah, you can spam like that.
The
What
control
I'd
point
probably
is
be
being
doing...
captured.
Oh, well, it seems like you're going to do it. And that sort of thing's good, like you jumping forward and not jumping into sticky trap to try and make space for your team. But I think you can often get away with doing something a little bit more extravagant, like doing a higher jump,
Secure the
kind
control
of like going
point.
faster and landing in at a better spot.
Yeah.
Definitely practice doing more double jumps than like just single jumps on Soldier.
The control
Yeah.
point is being
Because
contested.
the really nice thing about doing really fast and tall double jumps is that you're not only harder to shoot and stuff, but you can oftentimes just reload in the air, like you get a free rocket if you want.
Yeah.
But that's just a pretty standard push. Again, I'd like suggest you try and just try and land more away from your team.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. So I think your team Fortress wasn't a big Uber ad, yeah?
Either that, or we were trying to play off the advantage with player number, but we were too slow. Either one of the two. But I
Yeah,
think we
regardless
got
of
it
that,
right.
like I don't think you ever want to be in the sort of Uber. Let's say it's player advantage, yeah? No, Uber advantage, yeah,
Yeah.
and your team wants to play off it. There's not really a whole point of you being in the charge, on this map at least, as a soldier, because the classes that are the best at covering distance rapidly while still having a lot of ammo to do damage are the Demo Man in a charge, yeah, and the Scout.
Yeah.
And like the Scout is important because he makes the medic run fast so he can get to the Demo Man.
Yeah.
The fact that you took a flash there, despite like being a soldier, is not very good because it really
Okay.
compromises your team's Uber. Because it makes the duration of their Uber so much less, yeah. And also,
Yeah.
you're not really going to be able to do shit from that position as a soldier to chase down the enemy. Your class is just simply not suited to it.
Yeah.
In pretty much all cases where like it's even, let's say it's even players, but your team has an Uber advantage, you're going to find that you're not in Ubers most of the time, or at least you shouldn't be. There are exceptions, but as a general rule, like Ubers are Uber advantage is almost solely reserved for Demo and Scout, I find.
Yeah. Should I be like behind the combo when they're Ubering, or should I be just in a totally different spot, like door
Thanks,
2,
Borderlands.
for example?
It kind of depends. Like you might
Yeah.
be like making space for your team before they Uber in. Like you could be it's more map dependent. You could be jumping through a door, and like
Yeah.
making space for them before they Uber in. But a lot of the time you're simply going to be like following behind your team's Uber when it's safe. Like they clear a hole for you, and then you get through, or vice versa.
Yeah, okay.
But the key issue I think is that you kind of took a charge, which has already put your medic down to like fuck all after a second.
Yeah.
And they had Uber, so I think you're making the right call to get
The
ammo
final
here.
control point is being contested.
Keep going above.
Alert, control point is being captured.
That was pretty good what you did. Like I think I don't know if it was going through your mind or not, but you did a lot of things that were good for soldier, like being above and behind the enemy, and kind of like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, open players, man, holy shit. you can understand like the power of like being up and behind the enemy, because it really like
Yeah.
it's harder for you to get shot. You can see a lot of things. It really takes a lot of pressure off your team.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think that's a good good thing to practice. Anyway,
Lost the control point.
I'd be pushing off this book honestly, because they're missing a Demo Man, and then actually
Yeah, true.
the class to be to hold chokes and shit. It's obviously too late now, but like trading a is that a soldier? Yeah, your roamer is on soldier, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have tried to bust against no Demo, because that's by far and away the most important class, especially in this particular area of the map, the whole American area. But
Yeah.
but Mio is, you know, he cheats and stuff, so I can understand that you want to that's alright.
That's a problem with him. I didn't really like playing with this team in general. A lot of problems like that.
Right.
Like no main caller or anything, it's horrible.
So the enemy team just took a fucking Uber into mid. I think they thought they have ad. I think you... Well, let's actually watch this again, because I don't really see it, honestly. But we can talk about like what you can do during Ubers.
Alert.
It's fine, dude. It's you. Yep.
The control point is being contested.
So they think it's ad, and they're actually right. So what I would do here, since like your team is so close to Uber,
Yeah.
You don't actually have any. There's no reason for you to come back into choke here, right? Because I think
Okay.
the problem with it is that it benefit even if the enemy team didn't have Uber at it, it does benefit them that you're all kind of clustering in the same sort of area, like this sort of choke sort of area.
Yeah.
Because it really like corrals your team into a certain position, and
Yep.
you're not really achieving anything by being there. Like if you know that your medic's this fucking close to Uber, like he was basically gonna get it, I don't think there's much reason for you to be trying to like flee away from their Uber that's gunning for your combo. And something you could do instead that'd be so much like more effective and actually like contributing to your team is if you were to go contest their flank or something while while the enemy Uber's like coming through here, and that can be beneficial because maybe if the enemy team's retarded, they chase you, which would be good for your team, and then your team can retain Uber, or you could be utilizing your skill set as a soldier to kind of shut down other chokes so the non-Ubered players can't get in very easily. Like if I saw these cunts coming in here and I knew my team had Uber, I'd be trying to spam them obviously to force them, or like along with the demo, and then I'd jump and go contest the non-shiny cunts, and that'd be really good because I can like take more vision for my team. I can shoot, not like allow the fucking the enemy flankers to get in.
Yep.
And it alleviates a tremendous amount of pressure off your team, and by the end of it you might well have a player and an Uberad which your team can then utilize to go crush them.
Yeah, for sure.
It's you don't really want to be like, while this sort of Uber trade's going on, the worst thing you can often kind of do is give up like territory and position, because you're essentially like kind of useless in the position here. You're kind of just watching a fight going on, or at least that's probably what should happen. It'd be much better to see you go and achieve like other things during this time and not kind of like give this enemy a freebie, because in this position you're essentially like a player down. You're not really contributing in any meaningful fashion.
Yeah.
You got ammo? This is the biggest thing about Sword, honestly, is just ammo management, picking up crates and shit all the time.
Yeah.
Team's losing, so get up. It's really hard to like evaluate how much of these mids are like your fault and stuff.
Yeah.
And unless and more, if it's a team thing or not. But I'm willing to bet like if you like actually start doing things that are more beneficial, it can oftentimes just your input alone can completely swing a fight.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think you kind of observed there like how you didn't really achieve anything in terms of like damage or position or like vision or territory or anything like that.
Yeah.
We have lost the control point.
So like here for instance, like this is another case of I think you're playing scout too much.
Yeah,
It's a bit harder because you've got a sniper, but like this position, it's pretty unfortunate as a soldier because it's very easy for you to get raped by all manner of classes. Like soldiers can jump you like this cake dude, Derek can shit on your face, and then scouts can also walk around and shoot you too. And it's hard, and it's not only bad for that reason, but it's hard for you to shoot things. It's hard for you to get vision due to this wall, and it's just again, it's really close to your team, so it's the enemy's vision. Like they can really like focus on you because there's no threats and stuff. The fact that you have a demo and a sniper suggests to me that you shouldn't even be probably fighting the second point at all. Yeah. Like, if I were you, I would be either retreating or I'd be like sacking you as a soldier. Like I would have jumped like from a different position maybe, or even here and tried to like kill the medic while my team retreats. But we'll see how this goes. This should be a losing fight because we have no demo and we have a sniper.
Our control point is being captured.
But the key takeaway is I think you were trying to like play a scout position there, but also completely a losing fight. I really don't like how this Mio dude is sniping you in this situation. Though.
Yeah, I fucking hated it the whole fucking season.
Yeah, like even good snipers, like it doesn't matter how good you are. The problem with sniper is it has so many weaknesses. It doesn't really like take position or apply a lot of pressure a lot of the time, and it's very hit or miss in terms of what it contributes.
Yeah.
it's like a high risk, high reward. It's kind of there's a good time to run it, you know, during stamemates and stuff, but
Yeah.
the hero sniper shit I think is probably pretty cringe and it really compromises the team. A lot of the
Alert,
time.
Allied control point is being captured.
Good pursuit. Nice, nice.
Alert, the control point is being
You're
captured.
getting cap time, it's good. Don't, this is a little thing, but it's key.
Yeah.
You just wiped the enemy team, yeah?
Yep.
No fucking reason for you to kind of be looking back at your teammates. Like, you should be looking forward while capping to, like, check for shit, because I'm pretty sure that Cake dude tried to shoot rockets at you and they're almost hit. Or you could have got sniped while you're standing there. Like, again, focus on what's in front of you and what is actually important. Like, don't turn around to, like, evaluate if your fucking teammates are, you know, doing conga talks or something, I don't know. That's live, that's spy hole.
Do you understand that, medic?
Yeah, like here, like you should trust your medic. You should land in a position, tell him that you need a bow or whatever, or he'll know and he'll bow you. The fact that like you're kind of standing there looking at him, it's just asking to get pilled or like sniped or something. In my opinion.
Thanks, Doc.
So that's what you did is pretty good. I would have done it a little bit earlier. Like,
Wow.
but the key thing is, as a soldier, this is as a pocket part of me. This is a big part of what you do. Is like you jump through chokes and kind of check for threats and stuff.
Yep.
So it's good that you jump through the choke like that, because if the enemy were closer, it might pull their attention onto you away from your team. But what you really want to be trying to do when you're thinking about going through a choke is, you know, avoid dying to shit like stickies and snipers first and foremost.
Yeah.
But like land in a position where you can check for threats. Like I would immediately be turning to check for stickies, and I'd definitely be checking like over this sort of area to check for bombing soldiers or scouts or whatever. Like that's your first and prerogative, because you wanna get through and then evaluate threats, or you know, if they're not there, then you call that to your team so they can come in. Because if you don't check for stuff, what's going to happen is that a soldier is just going to do a retard sack onto your medic, and he's going to fucking he might kill someone important. And you don't want to allow that. And you can soldier is like the perfect class to be busting through these chokes like here, because he's like really fast, he's really healthy, and he can travel a good distance without dying.
Yeah, okay.
And you don't really want your scout to be oftentimes like coming through and checking beforehand, because his job is to protect the combo directly with his scattergun, and that's why he wants to be like pretty much underneath like the player jumping in a lot of the time. He doesn't want to like shoot the fucking enemy soldier into the combo.
Yeah.
So that's kind of your job, is kind of like checking for threats when you're pushing and making sure you know, your team can get an easy entry. And say like an enemy soldier was flying in, you'd fucking scream that to your team, and then that'd cause them to back off while you like maybe focus fire him or something.
Yeah.
So that's the massive part of playing offense. That's spy over there. I know it was probably screamed, but like that's probably not your responsibility at that point. You definitely don't want to be fucking turning around, I don't think, when you're like the one on the forward position. You just gotta trust your team not to be retarded and be able to handle a spy, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Like there's a good chance that if these guys wanted to actually defend mid, they could have just raped you here, because you're kind of the only one on the high ground at the moment, and they could probably shit on you. You definitely want to like focus on the key threats. Like a spy that far away, not your prerogative.
Yeah, okay.
Good spam. Yep, you're just taking position slowly. So you're not really even essentially doing damage there, but it's like kind of it's just positioning, kind of forcing the enemy away.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, this is a bit of an interesting scenario. So you had a player out and a noob right here. I still think you should probably be leading through the choke. Like I would have you jump and fly through and maybe land over here or just some other place, so you can actually check for threats. And there's also the downside of you like following or being inside your combo as you come through here is like you just kind of got shit on by this soldier, and other forms of spam. Like the key part is you don't want to be like sitting inside your combo, so you can avoid eating a lot of shit, and you also want to be flying through so you can check for these sorts of threats. And the benefit of that is, like, if you were to fly through soon and call for, like, things like stickies and snipers and the soldier bombing, that could potentially lead to, like, your team getting, like, a free entry and not even necessarily having to use Uber here.
Yeah.
Like, when I fly through a choke as a soldier, I'm checking for snickies, snipers, anyone who's close, like demo man, soldiers bombing, etc. And if the medic's close or not. And if it's, like, a pretty low risk situation, like there's only kind of like a soldier maybe bombing or a scout, I'd be, like, screaming to my team to, like, take it slow, and that could turn into, like, a free second for your team, and you don't really lose too much. Midi, great, that's very good. Oh, that wasn't you actually.
No, it was me.
You get no credit.
Sure, the control point.
I probably would not be running into the enemy lobby with a
Yeah.
pickaxe.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that too.
I won't elaborate on that. That's okay. I think the spam you did there is, like, it's okay. Like, it does damage, right? And it kind of maybe distracts the enemy. But honestly, you're probably more suited to landing in an even stronger position while you're still relatively safe and then blasting cunts. Like, you could be landing up on that ledge up there, potentially, above the heavy, or like
Gotcha.
above, up here or something. Or even on the fucking point if, like, this many players are dead. Like,
Gotcha.
you can definitely do, like, the long range artillery spam, but, like, if you can take a better engagement, especially against a distracted heavy like that,
Yeah.
probably want to. Because you can see how much downtime you have here, yeah?
Alert! The
Yeah.
final
You're holding a
control point is
position,
being
but
contested.
it's not really sort of objective position, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, gotcha.
But it should be good for this post.
Alert! The final control point is being contested.
I might have, like... If your team is on the right side over there, and the enemy
Yeah.
team is spawning, you can pretty much guarantee that they're going to try and do a left push, so...
Yeah, okay.
It might have been worth for you to, like, be up here instead, or...
Yeah.
If I were you, honestly, I would have been on the point ages ago just because they had no players up and the heavy was distracted. I would have just been capping.
Yeah, okay.
You can... What I really like to do as a soldier is, like, if the point is open, you can jump on it, and then
Yep.
if they turn their attention to you, cool, you can literally just, like, jump away or something. Because the fantastic thing about, like, touching the point on, like, last points as, like, the offending team is it makes the enemy shit their pants, right? They see the cap
Yeah.
going, and then all their fucking attention diverts, and they try and converge on the point to try and defend it, and that's, like, a massive advantage for your team. Like,
Yep.
I'm sure you played Gully Wash when some cunt, like, touches the point underneath,
Yeah.
and then, like,
Yeah.
your team just shits the bed, and they try and, like, desperately go for it. And that's,
Yep.
that's something you can absolutely do as a soldier. It's probably more so a scout thing than anything, but, like, if the point is open, someone should be contesting it, and that could well be you. Especially
Yep.
if that sort of player.
Go get
Again, just, I'd say one more rocket gun.
Okay.
At this health, you actually don't run very fast at all. Like, there's almost no point having a pickaxe out.
Yeah, gotcha.
Might as well be loading rockets, actually, at that speed.
Alert! The control point is being contested.
I'll try and, like, visualize it here if I can.
Yeah, gotcha.
You can kind of see what we're talking about. Like, I know I'm reiterating here, you know, but, like,
Yeah.
this position, you can imagine how easy it is for their demo man, because he's not under really any sort of immediate threat at the moment, so he could absolutely plaster you guys here.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't really benefit your team from this position. It's very hard for you to shoot stuff up here, I find, like, and do meaningful damage. It's very easy for you to
Yeah.
get blasted by, like, focus fire. The amount of space your team is, like, controlling is minimized. It really kind of, like, compromises your scout, and you're not really utilizing the strength of your class. In fact, you're actually maximizing its weaknesses, which is
Yeah.
you're fairly bad at this sort of range in terms of dealing reliable damage. You're super vulnerable because you're walking around up top, clustered with a teammate, and you're on a small position, which makes it very easy for, like, demos, scouts, even medics to shoot you, or even, like, soldiers jumping, like this dude, to shoot you potentially. I want to see you doing, like, way more, like, occupying different positions away from your team in a way that you can kind of still pressure them without being, you know, irrelevant.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even need to be like landing in particular spots. A lot of the time it's going to be like you doing big boy jumps through the air and kind of like pulling eyes and stuff and landing wherever you think's appropriate. But that naturally that's a intuition and practicing that you get with time.
Yeah.
Which is why again we're trying to focus on like understanding what your class is good and bad at, so you can have a better fundamental grasp of how you can go into fights rather than just kind of going into them a bit more blindly, which I think we're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was
Alert. The control point is being captured.
something we can talk about that's really, I think, really important for Soldier is you gotta understand that this class heals really fucking slowly with the medi beam.
Yep.
When he's taking damage, like soldiers in general, the times they're getting medi beam is when they've got crit heals. You know, so they heal rapidly with the medi beam.
Yep.
Or they're getting buffed, so you're doing like a sack player, for instance. Or you know your medics like buffing up teammates during a stalemate. Most of the time, you never want to be like getting the beam, especially during in a fight, but just because it's so bloody ineffectual.
Yeah.
And it also really compromises your team, because if you're near the medic, that means you're probably like in a fairly weak soldier position, like down here, so you're not able to contribute too much. And it also means that your key classes, which are the demo and the scout, they're not getting beam. And especially for the medic, he doesn't really want to be beaming you because he wants to be on scout so he can stay mobile and move around really fast and be able to reach other teammates via that scout speed a lot.
Yeah.
So what you're going to find is like good soldiers, most of their heals after they come into mid, it's going to be from bows essentially, or health kits. You actually want to be like a fair distance away from your medic, because the further you are away from your medic, the higher HP the bow does, right?
Yeah.
You don't really want to be receiving a 75 HP bow here, because it's not even going to put you up to full. It'd be so much better, you can imagine, if you were like in a position away from your team where you can still see and shoot things that the enemy team can't shoot you, and they can like bow you. Your medic can bow you for like a tremendous amount, because like at this sort of range, that will often put you up to full HP.
Yeah.
And as a soldier, like your HP is really precious. You need a fair amount. You need like either to be full HP most of the time or higher, like 300 or whatever, in order to do a lot of things.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Just because your class is so heal, he like is so reliant on heals to do things. He's not like a scout where he can like do stuff on like 20 HP.
Yeah.
You're very vulnerable in that sort of sense. So it would be so much better to see you like in a position somewhere else, away from the medic, away from your team, but still applying pressure without feeding.
Yeah.
I know this sounds really obvious, but people don't talk about it enough to like up and coming players.
Yeah.
Alert. The control point is being captured.
I think my definitely shit itself a little bit. That's great.
We have captured the control point.
Probably what I'd be doing instead of just walking through here, I'd be like jumping through this choke, and I'd be like looking around for threats, because you don't know if the enemy team's going to do a cheese play onto your medic, and they could fucking well do, because you've got a massive Ugrad. So like your main priority when you're coming through with like, especially with a player in a positional in a Uber advantage and stuff, is you want to be checking for things that threaten your team, especially your medic and your demo man. Like I'd be like maybe jumping to sewer while checking over here and like scouting for players who are being a bit sneaky, and I'd check up here. I might like jump up here is a really good spot, because you can see fucking everywhere. You can see behind the point, under, into lobby, into field and stuff. That sort of stuff's really useful. Don't just, you want to utilize your class to like actually jump to spots where you can evaluate what's happening. You don't want to do a kind of a waddle thing most of the time.
Yeah. Okay.
And definitely be like looking around when you go into a new area, like especially the sky and stuff with the snipers and stickies. So that's
Alert.
really
The control point is being
first and
captured.
foremost. And while you're doing it, try not to cluster near your teammates so you don't get collateral.
We have secured the control point.
I think I might just relaunch this demo if you don't mind.
Yeah. Fair enough.
One. Alert.
Loud. Alert. The control point is captured. So
The control point.
where's our dude at? So a key thing about last pushes when you have Uber is you want to like maximize the effectiveness of the Uber, of course, but like a big part of like the Uber right is that it makes space for you, the rest of your team to come in. So as a general rule, your medic should be like healing the shit out of like your soldiers and your flank players prior to pushes, because it's much harder for you guys to get in than your Uber, without eating shit. Like their kind of role is to get in, kind of carve out a safe space through some sort of doorway for your team, while trying to really rape the shit out of their combo and whatever key target they're going for, and then they'll kind of make a space for you. But it's really important that when you're trying to go into last and following behind your combo or whatever, that you're healthy, especially as a soldier, because you need all those HP to break in without feeding. So let's see what happens. Okay, so your team's taking a walk-in sort of Uber. I like it. You're going above here. Oh, there's a heavy. Okay. Well, you can imagine like what you want to do versus a heavy here, yeah? With this pole, you'd just be like blasting at him.
Yeah.
And that's I'd just be behind that pole, honestly, and just like utilizing your rocket launcher's right angle to just like chip away at him.
Yeah.
He's actually probably the most important class by far in the situation for defending class, because heavy is like the best class in this particular area of the map, I think, because he does a tremendous amount of damage and he's like really tanky and he can do so much. So if you're occupying a heavy here, then you're probably winning. Alternatively, if you fall down like here and you don't want to get raped by him, you can just go jump the enemy instead. So we'll see what you do.
Our last control point is being captured.
Okay, yeah, so I think it's good that you're occupying the heavy, but you're actually playing to his strengths by jumping into his face.
Yeah.
Also, your team was, my dude in the chat says that your team's Uber was really dog shit. Like your team didn't really achieve anything with it. They should be trying to like. The point of an Uber is to try and crush as many key targets as possible rapidly and take position. Like your team should have been like Ubering the demo and scout and kind of just flying into their face and mulching them.
Yeah.
So a big part of this loss of this push is on your team. But like we can, if we want to talk about just you, I think you could definitely be taking a fight against this heavy a lot better. Like
okay.
You don't want to jump into his face. You want to like use the fact that he's fat and retarded and hide behind corners to spam him. If you were to take that fight. It looked like your team tried to take like a walk-in Uber there. Like that's why you typically go 5. Is that you want to like get a really delayed Uber so you can come in a whole lot as a combo and then jump into them. But it looked like your team got forced pretty solidly, so that's pretty cringe. You can understand why it's cringe because it's so fucking far away from the enemy combo.
Yeah.
We have lost the control point.
Yeah, this is a good position. So your goal here is to spam, essentially. Oh, that's a really key thing I should mention is you oftentimes really don't want to get fucking distracted by these jumpers coming through, because what he was, I don't know if he was intending it. It doesn't really matter whether or not he was intending it, but like a lot of soldiers will do the sort of things I was talking to you about before, about like jumping in, and that's a space making thing. Like we're looking at it from the alternative end now. Like he jumped in like that, and he drew so many eyes off from your team, yeah? Like you looked at them, and I'm pretty sure like most of your team looked at them too.
Yeah.
Theoretically, like that would have been a major opening for the red team to like either come through here or probably choke in most circumstances. So like if you see some cunt flying over to the side like that, he's not really your responsibility, and it's not really to your strength either, because it would just simply take too long for you to go travel to him and shoot him.
Yeah.
You're so much more effective in like up here, because you can very easily see where the enemy team's coming from, and you can very easily like maximize the effectiveness of your class, which is like rockets at a distance, into chokes and stuff. Is the demo fucking in? Oh, I love this game. I'm gonna tolerate it. Unfortunately, yeah, I know. Fortunately, like landing in a pretty poor position, we don't want to be down here. This is called ditch, yeah. And we don't want to be in the ditch. I'd probably be like staying up here and shooting if you can. If they jump you, you can like retreat or like go somewhere else. But we don't really want to be landing in a shit's position.
Yeah.
I'm going really slowly through this demo. I'm sorry.
No, that's alright.
I'm probably not going to be able to do the entire thing.
No, that's totally fine.
The control point is being captured.
Thanks, Doc.
It didn't look
Thanks,
like you were
Doc.
getting proper support by your teammates though. Like they retained Uber and there was very little pressure upon them. It's
have
not,
lost the
you know, it's a
control
team
point.
game. It took an effort by everyone to try and not allow the enemy team.
Alert. Our
Yeah.
control point is
So
being
just doing
captured.
the last hold here. Your team got a force, which is really crazy. So like at this point, you know, your dude traded for the enemy force here, which
Yep.
is really good. I'd be trying to like position in such a way, like immediately with the rest of your team to not allow the enemy to get a counter second, because
Yeah,
despite
sure.
the fact that they're popped, they've got an advantage in the form of you're missing a player, like they have a player advantage, which is like enough for them to potentially try and warrant like coming through with some of their players for a counter sack.
Yep.
And they could easily like potentially come in and counter sack onto your medic or whatever, which would allow them potentially to, you know, force your medic in this dog shit position. Like a spot that you don't want to have to use Uber, which would probably allow them to retain second because they have that initial player advantage. So
Yep.
like as soon as you see the enemy team gets a shit Uber and your team has Uber and you're missing a player, like your goal should kind of trying to be like on just not allow them to get away with doing a sack or something. So
Sure.
We have lost the
definitely
control
want to be
point.
holding doorways.
Yeah, thanks, Doc.
I think your demo should not be holding 1 and 2, he should be holding lobby. That he's much more suited for that. You're much more suited for holding like the smaller, longer areas like 2 and 1. You can
Yep.
understand that just from a, like a class perspective.
Yeah.
And definitely you don't want players like over committing or under committing for doorways. Like if everyone's watching fucking lobby like that, that means that
Yeah.
2 and 1 would be open. So that's why
Yeah.
that's why it's really important that people kind of have a generalized understanding of like what classes or roles should be doing holding certain positions.
Yeah.
The general rule is demo holds here because it's a lobby. It's very hard for you to kind of shoot players a lot of the time into here. You're much more suited for the other sort of doorways. Oh, that's crazy. They kind of feed into your Uber, so that's nice. But when you get like these massive picks as a pocket soldier, like against the enemy team like that, what are you thinking about? Like what's your next plan?
At this point, I think I'm looking for stragglers
Yep.
because they're gonna do something stupid, like try and go back up or something. Or
Well, you can,
stay
you
into
can
the
imagine
med
what they're
post.
thinking, right? Like their mid's down, they're in like retard desperation mode, so they're either going to try and do a retard move for your medic most of the time,
Yep.
or they're going to do a retard move for the point. So
Yep.
the point is not really your responsibility to defend, like that's like your roamer and maybe your flank scout or something, but you definitely want to be like keeping track or trying to like look out for like the enemy team and stuff. With like I'd say a focus, like as soon as you kill the enemy medic as a pocket, your job is kind of you're the insurance policy and you're trying to like do everything you can to make sure your medic is safe, that he's not going to get fucking blasted by the suicidal retards. That's kind of
Yeah.
what you want to be doing as a pocket. So like here at this point, like where's your medic? He's in a fairly safe position, but like it's really hard to know what could be happening in this fight, like where the stickies are and stuff. Like I'd be honestly, you can slow it down a tremendous amount at this point when you get this sort of advantage and like really consolidate with your team and like
Yeah, okay.
and make sure that nothing is threatening your key classes, and you've got a good idea of what as like your team has a good idea of what's happening on the flanks. You don't get backcapped tragically.
Alert. The final control point is being contested.
And then dog shit, very good.
Medic!
So that's alright. Oh my gosh, stickies. Oh
Alert.
my gosh,
The
stickies.
control point is being
Oh
contested.
my god.
Oh my god.
But I think it worked out well for you, right? Like you killed the flankers, but again, your priority, I think, more than anything, is to like stick with your medic and protect him.
Yeah. Okay.
You can come back through lobby or something, but I wouldn't do that whole sort of
Wrap around, yeah.
wrap around exactly. 'Cause it's just too like
We have
too many
secured
unknown
the control
variables.
point.
It kind of compromises your medic and yourself's position. You don't want to fucking throw such a massive advantage by doing a single level instead, like leaving your medic open. Yeah?
Alert.
Yeah.
The control point is being
This
captured.
particular thing, we can talk about what just happened there. Like you jump through, yeah, and your
Yep.
goal should be immediately like called as a soldier, especially if he's jumping. And then like at that point, most of the prerogative is on your scouts and your your team to actually deny him. Like
Yep.
that's probably your scouts and your demos role more than anything. But you can certainly come back and kill him if you want to. But it's a shame that like I see it all the time is like when teams get massive like player advantages like this, I think they get really complacent and they assume that the enemy won't be able to do stuff.
Yep.
But it only takes like a one soldier to like fly through and kind of like defy your expectations and kill your medic, which is why
Yeah.
like you as a team you always want to be like really vigilant about not throwing away a critical advantage to like some retarded sack.
Yeah.
Because it's enough to just fucking throw down. Like so these guys should just win like straight up because your medic died. They've got like the move speed advantage and a medic, and they can simply just like out attrition you guys with like the heal advantage and the player advantage, and that's how you go from a throw to a throw. And then we see like the fucking counter like retard move. Like these guys are not these guys just got critical picks and they're probably getting complacent and not like consolidating, and then your dude Eternal just runs in there and gives them an internal. Right?
Yeah.
That's what like I think lower tier
Our
players
control
will probably
point
not-
is
it
being
fucking
captured.
it's a tragedy because it happens all the time in even higher tier games. People just like get complacent and they can like fuck around and not be too vigilant when they have major ad, because that's like that's in a sense that's when the enemy's the most dangerous because they've got the least amount to lose, so they're control trying. But in regards to you, that's your job is kind of just to check and protect against the threats. Make sure you just keep your team informed. Yeah, and you seem to know that Pocket holds 2 in 1 genuinely, which is good.
Yep.
And then you got your roamer on the far side usually, like he's usually on the boxes over there or something. Your combo should be moving forward once they get charged out. This spam here you're doing is good. Just make really fucking sure that you don't overextend, because it's remarkably easy for a demo man to put a sticky behind you and combine rocket spam and scout, and you can die. Like don't get too overzealous against like teams that have been this passive, or at least this far back, because it's so easy for you as a soldier to just get blasted in this sort of area. If they overextend into here, then you can be more defensive or aggressive against them. But let's pretend that you did actually feed here. You can imagine how bad that is for your team, because you be a player down and you have a sniper, and that's in a lot of ways that's like having 2 players down, because this class is really bad at holding a position a lot of the time if he misses. So that could really lead to them coming in and then sacking onto your team, especially because you don't have any like defensive gun or heavy. Yeah, you can see how that if somebody actually helped that guy, he would have actually just died in 2 straight away. If you are gonna peek like that, just get a buff. Like you don't want to be going in there with 200, because the soldier with 300 HP is like so much more tanky in terms of a fight than like a 200 HP soldier. Same thing with jumping. This is really silly by the red team, you can imagine. Like they got this crazy player ad, and they forced, and then they decide to trade in straight away. Like, I mean, it probably will turn out well for them because they've got this player advantage and you had a sniper. But if I were them, I'd be trying to like just force you and then fuck off with the team and hold second and then come in with an Uber ad. You can definitely do trades like red team's doing and have a big player ad, but like it's probably a bit more risky in a lower tier game. Like you can see how it probably is going to work out for them. It'd be a lot safer to just like retain Uber ad and come and play it. Although Catfish is kind of like bad winning, so yeah, I don't know. Not really your responsibility, but something worth talking about. Where's our dude?
Alert! The control point is being captured. We have secured the control point.
Again, like this sort of player, since you have second, I don't really think it's your job to come. Oh, you can. It's not a big major issue, but I'd be trying to get to second as soon as possible and kind of like get around my team near the point and start like doing stuff. This is more like flank orientated things, dealing with the enemy flank. I'd probably rather that you just don't, because this is to his benefit. Yeah, this flank scout, like he's occupying a lot of you guys your attention.
Yeah.
Which if the enemy team was actually, you know, really good, they might like capitalize off and push off and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't want to get occupied with players that are out of your control or even away from what you should be doing. I'd rather you just probably just go to where you ought to be, which is second, and try and like get ready to fight the enemy combo, the main guts of the enemy team. But it works out, so I'm not going to like drill you too hard for that, but I would say it's probably more so a flank sort of thing most of the time.
Yeah, sure.
You know, this is major player ad, right? They've got 2 scouts down, so I'd be doing a massive big fucking fly through jump here to like trap your enemies. Like way earlier than this. Like you can do like a double jump, do it off this wall and stuff, and you can get like crazy vision while turning around and checking the threats. And if you were to do that, you'd know that they have a sniper, and then you could call the position of him, and thus like protect your team by having them rotate elsewhere. Yeah, so like that scout, that trap, that should be your responsibility. You fly through, you check the trap, and then maybe knock it if you want, and call it to your team while looking for other shit.
Yeah.
This is good. I probably wouldn't jump straight in the straight fucking line against an enemy sniper.
Yeah.
For reasons we don't need to talk about, but the fact that you're applying pressure to the sniper is like that's like a key job of yours, yeah. Like you're on threat management.
The control point is being contested.
Now he has to fuck off probably, unless he's like retarded. He's retarded, that's right. Good being vigilant on that though, because lots of players will just like to sit in there and cheese until they think they have an opening.
I'm looking at him dot and chat.
Yeah. So this is, since you got a player ad here, like I'd be fucking moving off this. This is crazy. Like you guys have a player ad, you should be kind of walking towards the front line and then doing the sort of pocket initiation shit that we talked about before. Get a buff, fly through, check for threats. Yeah, I think you guys should definitely be pushing off this shit. Let's not give it your heavy on the point over here. Because you can imagine, like they're missing a player, right? A soldier, which is a particularly important class when it comes to like holding a point.
Yep.
Their team is being occupied by like your flank, it would seem.
Yeah.
This is like a perfect opportunity for you to be flying through, checking for shit, and like carving a hole for your combo to come in and get a free entry into second.
Yeah.
You deserve a medal, Doc.
Yeah. Speed it along. Okay, and then there's defeating. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's your responsibility to be kind of sitting in the choke in the same position as your demo and stuff, because it's a really, even here, it's a really pretty hard spot to do damage to the enemy team without eating shit yourself.
Yeah.
If I were to have you in the choke, it'd probably be like on top of this rock, because it's way safer and you can shoot shit with spam without taking damage. Or I'd just be having you jump through and landing in a different spot to alleviate pressure off your team. You're kind of like, you kind of are compromising your team by being in the same spot of them, especially when you have an advantage. Like there's no reason really to. Just get a buff and then make space for your team via your rocket jumping and stuff. Your demo and your scout are perfectly suited for raping cunts down here from choke. Like you could be doing more productive. So you can call the team's called as a flank later on. Great, that's good. That's you responding to like calls and stuff. So that's
The
really good.
control point is being captured.
I got
Capture the control point.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have a sniper, fun.
Yeah, nice.
So as a general rule, when you do have is that a fucking heavy in the doorway? Okay. So when you do have a sniper defending, like soldier is probably one of the best classes with buffs to try and make space with him, because he's very good at like spamming a choke, opening up a choke like without feeding, as a, you know, because he's really tanky. And that's kind of what your role as a pocket a lot of the time is, like your sniper calls where he wants to snipe from.
Yeah.
And then your job is to kind of carve the space for him so he can take a freer shot. I've never seen a heavy with. So yeah, this Jesus. So Mio, where's our dude? He's in lobby. It's not good that his fucking team is not supporting him. Like
Yeah.
his medic should be here and his dimmer man. Not necessarily you. Once you take lobby, like you could be holding 2 or something, but once you've got you definitely want to be like playing around making space and make it as easy as possible for your sniper once you do when you do have one.
Yep.
Which- that's a thing, not necessarily this stuff. Yeah, like it's just it's lame that like you got this critical pick and then like you guys are on second while the sniper. You just want to play off the fucking player pick your sniper got because it makes it even easier for him to get even more picks. Or
Yeah.
or you can just be sacking in as a soldier yourself if you want. The key point is like your job, especially if you have advantages, is you're trying to make space for like your more important classes that more easily doing things they want to do.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably, I think that's a good point to cover, honestly.
Yeah.
So this general rule, it's kind of just like, it's really just about like making space for your team, and doing
Yeah,
it in a
100%.
way where you don't like compromise them or like be useless yourself, that sort of thing, and getting information.
Yeah.
And just, if you just go into games and you practice like jumping from good positions to good positions and doing it high and fast and kind of
Yep.
occupying the team without feeding but still being relevant, you will find that you just win way more games as a soldier.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you very much, man. I appreciate this immensely. This is super, super helpful. Better than any other review I've done with any other person, so I appreciate it.
It's okay. It's on the VOD's on my Twitch if you want to check it out.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be really helpful. Alright, cheers, man. Thank you very much for your
You're right.
time.
You're right. See ya.
Peace.